What is going on, gunfighters? Saddle up for another episode of Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting the right way, with God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. First and foremost, I am a Christian, a servant of God, and a follower of Jesus Christ. God has blessed me to do many things in my life, for I could do nothing apart from Him. U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran, did a couple of tours in Iraq. As an assaultman after my combat tours, I was an urban warfare instructor for the Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. Also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. Also did several years in law enforcement, LAPD. I worked regular assignments and more specialized assignments. Been a private contractor for a 3-letter government agency. That's all I'll say about that. Been blessed to be a state rifle and pistol champion and West Coast regional rifle champion. Won more shooting competitions with the talent that God's given me than I can actually remember. Was blessed to be the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. Our primary job, the reason we primarily existed, was to stop active shooters. I got the opportunity to head up and be the commander of that team. I grew up around guns, hunting and shooting and competing at a very early age. Been blessed to hunt all over this beautiful country, from whitetail on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast, and bear and elk and all manner of things. I've even been a professional big game hunter and guide. But again, most importantly, I'm a Christian. And I am your host, Michael Melito. Welcome to Gunfighter Life. What are we going to talk about in this episode of Gunfighter Life? Well, we're going to talk about shotguns. Near and dear to me. You know that I love shotguns. If you've listened for any length of time, you'll know that I kind of diverge from popular opinion. For my one long gun for the end of the world, it's not going to be an AR, it's not going to be an AK, it's not going to be my Scar 17, I'm very blessed to have. It's going to be a shotgun. They're the most versatile. For most defensive uses, the most effective. For me, that's going to be my one long gun. We're going to talk specifically today, get into the weeds about different semi-autos, and the two most common, I think, semi-auto shotgun systems. Before I get in depth on that, I want to mention, not sending me guns for free, and I'm like, oh, this is great. This is not a commercial for a gun or a gun company, and I hope you appreciate that honest opinion. And if you do, hopefully you'll consider supporting. Anyway, it should be a link in the show notes to Patreon. There should be a link to goodshepherdtraining.com. Either one of those will get you to the raffle. With that, let us dive in. Let's do a cannonball into the world of semi-auto shotguns. Two main systems have really become preeminent. Now, I know the Browning Auto 5, and I know it's got a great reputation, and it's a testament to John Moses Browning. He designed that in the 1800s, and it's still a proven reliable system. But really, in today's market, and there's a lot of little sub-variations in there of these two systems. But basically today, the two winners have become gas-operated and inertia-operated. And a lot of you listening are probably familiar with ARs. And you're probably familiar that in the barrel of an AR, there's a hole drilled into it, and there's some gas that comes back and works that bolt back and forth. That's vastly oversimplifying the system, I know, but just to get an idea, a gas-operated shotgun works much the same way in that you have holes drilled in the barrel. Usually these will be in the bottom of the barrel instead of the top of the barrel. But you'll have one hole, maybe multiple holes, a lot of times 2 holes drilled in the bottom of the barrel. Some of that gas, when that gas pressure surpasses it, will be driven down into the working parts of that gun, and they will be used to push back some kind of operating system, usually a piston of some sort. A rubber O-ring, a metal piston, some sort of apparatus, and this varies depending on shotgun, but there's something there. Some kind of thing that captures the energy of that gas and shoves back, usually on a couple of bars, action bars, that are connected to the bolt, and that shoves the bolt back, unlocking the bolt, twisting it usually in some kind of degree or manner, or unlocking it with locking lugs. It does something to push that back. To unlock the system, it pushes the bolt back, it picks up a round, and it shoves it back forward. Not the first one. I looked it up, and high standard I think was the first one, but I think maybe the second one. Verify all this for yourself by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. A matter is established. And I'm not familiar with like what the Russians were doing during this time period or whatever. But for semi-auto shotguns, there was the high standard, which was kind of a dead end. I think it didn't really go anywhere. And then the Remington 1100, which was the first semi-auto shotgun I ever owned. And I had it for a long time, and I foolishly sold it. One of the shotguns I kind of wish that I had kept. Who knew at that time that Remington was going to quickly go bankrupt again, and their quality control, in my opinion, is going to really take a dive. That old 1100 that I had, I think I bought it at Walmart. It was great. It ran great. It was soft shooting for a 12 gauge. And it's a pretty simple system. It had a rubber O-ring. I think one. It may have had multiple. A rubber O-ring, a metal cylinder, piston, whatever you want to call it, that pushed back on the action bars and did what we said and kind of unlocked it. There was a locking lug that comes up to the top, I believe, if I remember correctly. And that's basically how that system works. You fire the gun, that hot gas gets funneled down, it pushes that action bar back, it pushes the action back, unlocks the bolt, shoves the old round out via the extractor and ejector, and grabs a new round. When it gets popped out of the magazine tube, it shoves it forward. Now let's talk about inertia. Inertia is a far different system. Inertia has been kept popular. I don't know if it was made popular. I think there were shotguns preceding it, but made popular and kept popular like a mainstream shotgun by Benelli, I think. Benelli's M1, the M1 Super 90, fantastic shotguns. Another shotgun that I have that, even more than the Remington 1100, I wish that I had kept. I got that gun and it was so good, and I sold it for other Benellis, and I just assumed that they were all going to be that good. But that was a light, handy, super reliable, fantastic shotgun. Benelli M1 Super 90. Benelli M2, still really big and really popular. They have a lot of these kind of shotguns. Benelli is kind of, again, known for this. I'm not going to go down their whole product line. But Benelli is kind of known for this inertial system. What is it? Well, as the name implies, it uses inertia. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. I don't think I have to tell anybody that's ever actually fired a 12 gauge or 20 gauge. There is recoil there. Seems like a no-brainer, right? There's recoil. There's quite a bit of recoil in a 12 gauge, far more than a lot of other common rounds. It has recoil. It has inertia. For that, let's say 1 ounce slug or 1 ounce of shot, and I know most loads are different than that, but for that load going out of the barrel, yeah, let's just pick a number, 1,600 feet a second. That's a lot of inertia. For that action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, force going rearward. Well, the inertial system captures that force, uses it to push back on the operating system, a rotating bolt, which will unlock, and push that bolt back with a big spring that is in the stock. And basically just the energy of that catches that round and shoves it forward. Notice I didn't say anything about gas there. All the gas, I should say almost all the gas, the vast majority, there's probably, I know there's some because you can see gas coming out of the holes when they eject out of a shotgun. But for all intents and purposes, practical purposes, the gas goes out of the barrel, except for the little bit that comes out in the shell and that stuff. But the gas, the barrel is a tube, right? In practical, simple terms, the barrel is a solid steel tube. In the case of Benelli's, I think they're all chrome lined. At least all the ones I know of are chrome lined. They're a steel tube with a choke at the end, but basically it's a steel tube that the shot and everything goes down. There's a bolt that locks up behind it. That inertia drives that bolt back, picks up a round, and shoves it forward. You might deduce from me describing this that it's a simpler system, and I think that it is. Now, let's reason what are some of the advantages of these systems and which one is best for you. Well, there are some inherent advantages to one system over another. Before I get into that, let me mention that it's really important that a shotgun fits you. That's really important. So you may find one operating system that's supposed to be one way, but for you, you like a different one because it just shoots better for you. That being said, shotgun fit is important. The fact that you can operate the controls and all that stuff is equally important. The way that you feel recoil is more important to you than the actual recoil. On paper, or if you actually put it in a physics testing device, like you put it suspended in a string harness, picture like a swing, and you pulled both triggers, and one shotgun theoretically recoiled and swung back more than another, that might not mean that you feel the recoil the same way, up into your cheek, into your face, just different things. So realize that when I talk about this. But we're going to talk about some generalities for these operating systems. The gas gun, big advantages. They have usually softer recoil for a given load, for a given thing, and that makes sense, right? Because you are using some of that energy, some of that gas is getting cycled back to work the action. So you're losing some of that gas, and that gas pressure is leaving early, so it dampens some of that recoil. So in general, a similar weighted, gas gun shooting the same load will have generally less felt recoil. It'll be softer shooting. And maybe less recoil is not even the best way to put it. Softer shooting. It has less jarring of a recoil. That's a big advantage of gas guns. They are very fast. They are very fast shooting. That is another good thing about them. They seem to be made fairly inexpensively. If you look at some of the cheapest semi-autos, I think you'll find that they're gas guns. At least American guns, American-made stuff, or Italian-made stuff. The Turkish imports, they copy a lot of stuff. I can't really speak to what they're copying. But I think in general, for traditional shotguns, I think that's probably true. So they generally have what's referred to as softer shooting shotguns, helping you maintain your sight picture better, maybe helping you get follow-up shots better and faster. You look at, I mentioned the 1100. That is like been around for decades and decades, and probably still would be around if Remington hadn't gone through their whole debacle. And it saddens me because they used to make such really good shotguns. But anyway, some other really popular ones. The Mossbergs. Mossbergs known a lot of times for their pump action shotguns, but they're also really known for their affordable and good reputation semi-auto shotguns. Their 940, the 940 JM Pro, those kind of shotguns. Like if you want a semi-auto shotgun, that was, I think, a reason for a long time, a big chunk of the shotgun market, including police, but also hunters, preppers, survivalists, all of us in those categories. We a lot of times gravitate towards pumps because they were reliable and they could be made much more affordably. Get a good, reliable semi-auto, you had to spend quite a bit of money, usually more than double sometimes. But the Mossbergs have been around a while, and I think they're fairly proven as being fairly reliable. So there's that. Also, what's come hot on the market lately, the Beretta 1301. Talking about tacticalness. Now they have the 400s and the 300s. I see they just came out with like a tactical 300. And these use different operating systems. The 1301 has kind of got their blink system. And again, they're going to be soft shooting. They are going to have quite a few moving parts in there. And they basically, I know there's small variations and engineers might get mad at this, but basically they work the same way. They're going to have holes in the barrel. They're going to funnel some of that gas back to some kind of piston operating system and unlock that system. Now, what are the advantages? We talked about the advantages, and there's really a big one, the softer shooting. Let's talk about the advantages of the inertial system. It's simple. And you don't get that dirty, nasty gas in the action of the gun. Like people say with the AR, it craps where it eats. Gas systems in shotguns do the same thing. They crap where they eat. Right? They dump all that dirty, nasty gas in the operating system. And I've heard the term with the shotgun the same way I heard it with the old ARs. They're self-cleaning. Okay, well, go shoot 1,000 rounds in your AR and take the bolt out and tell me that it's clean. Look me in the eyes and tell me that's a clean bolt. Right? It's not. It's not. It gets dirty. It gets that hot and nasty gas in there. Now, shotguns are a much bigger system, and the 12 gauge is a much... my default is a 12 gauge. It applies less or so to the 20 gauge, but still, either one of those is far bigger, a bigger round. You're dealing with bigger parts, bigger rounds than the AR. So maybe less of an issue, but it still gets dirty in its operating system. The inertial system doesn't. The inertial system, like we talked about, just uses the inertia. Those parts stay fairly clean on their own. Now, if you drop them in mud or something, they're going to get dirty, obviously. It's a fairly enclosed system. Again, the barrel is basically just a tube. Now, there's chokes and stuff and different linings, but for all intents and purposes, there's no holes or anything drilled into it. So you get rid of all that, and you get rid of all that hot, dirty, nasty gas going into the action. And that's really a big advantage. Simplicity and cleanliness of that action. Again, the Benelli M1, the Benelli M2, their M3, which is a hybrid system. You can either use it as a pump action or a semi-auto, a really cool shotgun. And the M4 is kind of its own thing. The M4 has, because they wanted it super reliable, they basically put both systems. They have a gas system and they have an inertial system, so it'll do either one. That's kind of unique. And there's quite a few other Benelli shotguns. I should also mention the Stoeger. Stoeger is kind of the, I want to say the budget version, the cheaper version of the Benellis, uses the same operating system. That's the big advantage. It's cleaner. And in my opinion, simpler. Now, let's talk about big disadvantages. Now, we kind of covered this a little bit talking about the advantage of the inertia, but gas guns get dirty. You may or may not be concerned about this, but they do get far dirtier in any of my experiences than inertia guns. I'm talking about the internal moving parts. Oh, that's a big disadvantage there. Disadvantage of the inertial guns. They're going to have a sharper recoil. Again, apples to apples, and you can't really do that, but most other things being equal, to have a sharper felt recoil than the gas guns. Another big disadvantage is not in the system itself, but in that there's only a few that I mentioned. The Benellis, the Stoegers, there may be some other ones, some other knockoffs or something, but really they're the big ones that do the inertial system. So you don't get as much variety. If you're looking for specific models and finishes and this thing and that thing, you might be more likely to find it in a gas gun because there's a lot more options in gas guns. So those are some disadvantages there. Which one is right for you in your life right now? Maybe neither. Who knows? But what are you going to do with the shotgun? Is it for waterfowl hunting? Is it for upland bird hunting? Is it for tactical stuff? Is it for tactical, cool Instagram-y stuff? Shooting, plates really fast? Taking a training class? Is it for end-of-the-world apocalypse, hard times, putting food on the table instrument? There's just a lot of different things. So what I think the gas guns do well, why you might choose one. If I was looking for like a 20 gauge upland bird gun, right, there's really no contest. I would probably go with a gas gun. Right, yeah, it is to put food on the table, but let's be honest, if I'm doing upland game hunting with a 20 gauge shotgun, probably not going to starve to death that night if I don't shoot anything. So if it gets a little bit dirty, I go home and clean it at the end of the day. Not a big deal. And I get softer shooting. And if I'm going to shoot upland birds and stuff like that, why not? Also, on the tactical side, the 1301s have become really popular, and I truly like Beretta. They're one of my favorite gun companies. I think the Beretta 92 is an amazing gun. Still, 1301, I think its advantage is, and why a lot of people like it, is its soft shooting for a tactical 12 gauge shotgun. And let's be honest, a lot of people, I think if they're honest with themselves, don't really enjoy the recoil of a full stout 12 gauge gun, and that can lessen it a little bit. If you want to take a training class and shoot a bunch of rounds, and it's primarily going to be a shotgun for home defense, which is a fantastic home defense choice, you're not planning on long periods of time where you can't clean it or not really worried about it getting overly dirty. We're not talking about like 5 rounds and it gets so dirty it won't work. We're talking about a lot of rounds. If you're planning on being in an environment where you can clean it often, that 1301 is a lot of advantages. Now let's talk about why one might choose the inertia system. Waterfowl hunting, where stuff is really nasty and muddy and stuff anyway, and you're wearing big, thick, heavy coats. You're shooting stout loads, but you're probably not waterfowl hunting in a t-shirt. Be less concerned with the recoil, and you also may be in a more austere environment where you don't want that dirty, nasty gas mixing with salt water and all that other stuff. You want to keep it as clean as you can to keep you going through the hunt. Conditions in general are a lot more adverse waterfowl hunting than they are upland bird hunting. So that might be an application there for the hunting side. For the tactical side, if you plan on it being a really hard times kind of survival tool, a truck gun, your one gun, I'd really lean towards the inertial system because it doesn't get dirty when you shoot it. It's not that the gases themselves are that bad, but that gas and that powder residue can attract moisture. So if you plan on shooting it, hunting with it, small game, whatever, that's one of the big advantages of the shotgun. And then continuing to use it, you're introducing less junk into that system that can get, salt water or moisture or condensation mixed in with it and mess up that system. So for that sake, I really would lean that way. Also for like a hard times, austere environment, where there's maybe no supply chain. I mentioned those small parts in the gas systems. I liked that Remington 1100, but when you take it apart and clean it, there's always that little teeny rubber O-ring, and I'm always thinking to myself, when is that thing gonna break and give out? You might have a spare or two, but that little rubber O-ring never set me at ease. I never liked the fact that that gun needed that little rubber O-ring and those little like piston parts that are in there. What if you're taking it apart to clean it and you lose one? It's a little black rubber piston and you drop it in the leaves somewhere and then you're done. Or the little metal circular, whatever it's called, piston gasket type things, which a lot of those have. Or the springs that they have more so than the inertial guns. Like what if something happens with one of those small parts? There's more complexity, there's more small moving parts that have to work together, I think, in my opinion, in the gas guns. In addition to them, kind of by the nature of the operating system, being small and getting dirty. So for that, for austere environments, for long-term kind of things, if I'm picking a semi-auto, I'd be picking an inertial system. That's exactly what I did. I own one currently, semi-auto shotgun. I'm not a gun collector. This is gunfighter life. I have this one. I did not see the need for really any others. At least not at this point. If I got really big and get into like upland game hunting, maybe that'd be different. But I have a Benelli M2. I'm not saying that's what's right for you. I'm not saying that what I do you should copy all the time. Hopefully I laid out some well thought out arguments as to both. But I like simple. I'm into survival. I'm a survivalist. I make no apologies for that. If I'm grabbing a shotgun, it's going to be a semi-auto, and there are a lot of advantages to a semi-auto. I want that simplicity and ruggedness and low maintenance that the inertial system offers. So for me, that's my choice for what I want to do. Again, what do you want to do? Alright, with that, I'm going to roll into the tactical verse of the day because I don't want you to tune out and miss it. Maybe talk about some other stuff, and then the tactical tip at the end if you want to stay tuned through it all. The tactical verse of the day. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. It reminds me of another passage. Jesus himself said, I came that they may have life and have it more abundantly. Let's not forget that God wants us. Jesus wants us to have a rich, abundant, healthy life. Let's not forget that. And that richness is far more and goes far beyond and is far richer than the riches of Babylon and the abundance of things that we possess and own. A rich, real wealth. A joy and a peace that passes understanding. That's the kind of life that I hope for all of us. If you like that, you may also like Simple Man Sermons if you want more of the sermons. Also, if you don't already listen, Alpha Male Podcast. Just Alpha Male Podcast. All kinds of manly topics that you may enjoy. Just did one on neck knives. Just the latest one I think that came out. Anyway, you may enjoy those. Either way, I am humbled that you gave me some of your time today. It really is humbling. Tactical tip of the day. Number 4 buck. Let me expound on that. Most people will tell you double-aught buck, double-aught buck, double-aught buck is where it's at. It's what the military uses, what the police use. It's the best. I'm going to tell you I prefer number 4 for a lot of things and a lot of reasons, and I think it is just as lethal. Not all the time. If I'm shooting into a vehicle or something, to go through a car door, yeah, I think that double-aught is better, and that's a big reason I think police use it. But for things that I like to do, and for a lot of hunting, and I've done quite a bit of hunting with number 4 buck, I really like number 4 buck. If you don't know the numbers, double-aught buck I believe is 33 caliber. Number 4 is 24 caliber. A standard loading kind of definitively is 9 pellets. That's kind of your standard military police loading. 9 pellets, double-aught buck. Standard 2 3/4 inch shell. I can get 27 number 4 buck pellets in there. If you bump up to a 3-inch shell, you get 12 pellets to be fair and double-aught, but you'll get 40 something, 41 I believe in a lot of standard loadings, 41 pellets of number 4 buck. I like number 4 buck. Maybe look into it. Maybe just don't go with double-aught buck. And double-aught buck, maybe you decide that's best for you, but there's more buckshot out there than just double-aught. And if you really can't decide, maybe look at number 1 buck. Thanks for listening. If you want to contact me, goodshepherdtraining.com. Have a blessed day.